Welcome to Revenge with Nora. I designed my dream boutique and invited every single member of my family to the launch. Not one of them walked through the door. They were 2 miles away at my stepbrother's college graduation party, the one my stepmother had been planning for 6 months, while I stood in my own store in a white silk dress, watching the door that never opened. When the last candle burned low and the champagne went flat, my phone finally buzzed. It was my father. We should talk about the shop. My name is Clara Bennett. I'm 29. And if you think you already know where this is going, stay with me, because the ending surprised even me. The boutique was called Thread and Light. It had taken me 4 years to build not just the money, but the vision. I'd spent 2 years designing the interior myself, sourcing sustainable fabrics from 3 different countries, building relationships with independent makers who couldn't get shelf space in bigger stores. The walls were warm plaster. The lighting was the kind that made every woman who walked in feel like the most beautiful version of herself. I'd sewn the curtains by hand. I'd painted the logo above the door myself at 2 in the morning, because I couldn't afford to hire anyone that week, and I refused to let that stop me. The launch party was supposed to be the moment. Champagne, local press, a photographer I'd traded a custom jacket for, and my family, the people who'd watched me cut fabric on my bedroom floor since I was 12 years old, in the front row. I sent the invitations 6 weeks early. Hand-lettered cards with gold envelopes. I called my mother twice to make sure she had the address. I called my aunt. I texted my cousins. I even extended an invitation to my stepmother, which, if you knew our history, you'd understand cost me something. I told myself it would be different this time, that the boutique would be the thing that finally made them take me seriously. At 7 o'clock on the night of the launch, the photographer was there. My 2 employees were there. 3 women from my online community who had driven 40 minutes to support me were there. But the chairs I'd reserved for my family, 8 of them, right in the center, were empty. By 8, I stopped checking the door. By 9, I was helping a woman named Patricia try on a linen blazer, laughing at something she said, pretending my chest didn't feel like it was caving in. At 10, I locked up alone. I was sitting on the fitting room floor eating a granola bar I'd found in my bag when my father's text came through. We should talk about the shop. Not congratulations. Not I'm sorry we missed it. Just we should talk about the shop. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. Come by tomorrow and we will. He didn't come tomorrow. He sent my stepbrother instead. Derek showed up at 11 in the morning in the kind of casual clothes that still somehow looked expensive. He had a coffee from the good place down the street, 1 cup, just for himself, and he leaned against my front counter like he owned it. Dad wanted me to check in, he said, scanning the racks with the detached curiosity of someone walking through a museum they hadn't chosen to visit. Check in, I repeated. See how things went. You know. He picked up a price tag, looked at it, set it down. He's a little worried the location isn't right. He was saying maybe you should have opened somewhere with more foot traffic. I folded the sweater in my hands very slowly. The launch sold out of 6 pieces in 1 night, Derek. He nodded like I'd said something mildly interesting. That's good. Still. He set his coffee on my counter without a coaster. Dad thinks if you'd let him look at the financials, he might be able to help you restructure. There it was. The real reason. My father had offered to invest once before, 18 months ago. I'd said no, politely, because I knew what his investments looked like. My aunt's catering business had taken his money and spent 3 years trying to recover from the conditions attached to it. He didn't invest in things. He acquired them. Tell Dad the boutique is fully funded and the books are closed, I said pleasantly. And next time you visit, please don't put anything on the display counter without asking. Derek blinked. Clara. Also, I added, next time you come into my store, you buy something or you make an appointment. Same as everyone else. He left without finishing his coffee. That afternoon, I changed the lock code on the stockroom. Small thing. But it mattered. What happened next, I didn't expect. The photographer who'd covered the launch had posted a short reel of the boutique that morning, the light through the curtains I'd sewn, the grain of the plaster walls, a slow pan across the racks. By noon, it had 40,000 views. By evening, my website had crashed twice from traffic. My inbox had 200 messages. Women writing things like this is exactly what I've been looking for, and I drove past your block last month and knew I had to come back and please tell me you shipped to Oregon. I sat on that same fitting room floor, different granola bar, and cried. Not from sadness. From the particular overwhelm of being seen by strangers when your own family couldn't be bothered to show up. The next morning, I opened the door at 9 and there was a line. Not a long line. 6 people. But 6 people who had come specifically, intentionally, to be there. One woman had taken the train from 2 hours away. She told me she'd been looking for a place like this for years, somewhere that felt like it was made with intention. She bought 3 pieces and hugged me on her way out. My mother called while I was ringing her up. I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail said, "Clara, I want you to know we wanted to be there. Derek's party just ran long, and by the time we thought about leaving, it was already so late. You understand. You're always so understanding. Call me back, sweetheart." I listened to it twice. Then I saved it. Not to send to anyone. Just because I knew I'd need to remember exactly how it sounded the next time I started doubting myself. My father arrived on a Wednesday, unannounced, 40 minutes before closing. He was wearing his good coat. He did that when he wanted to feel in control of a room. He walked the whole store before saying anything. Touched a few fabrics, looked at the price points. Nodded slowly, in the way people do when they're calculating something. "It's nice," he said finally. Smaller than I imagined. It's exactly the size I designed it to be. He sat down in the armchair near the window, the one I'd reupholstered myself in a deep green boucle without being invited to. "I spoke to someone who knows commercial real estate in this area," he said. "He thinks you could expand into the unit next door within 2 years if you had the right backing." "I have a 5-year plan," I said. "It doesn't involve outside backing." He looked at me with that particular expression, patient, slightly pitying, that I'd been seeing my whole life. The look that meant he was about to explain something to me I should already understand. "Clara, you're talented. I've always said that. But talent isn't capital. You need someone in your corner who understands how to scale a business." "You didn't come to my launch," I said. He paused. "Derek's party was." "Derek's graduation party. Which you've known about for 6 months." I kept my voice even. "My launch, which I told you about for 6 weeks. With a hand-lettered invitation that I made myself." It was a scheduling conflict. "It was a choice," I said. "And I'm not angry about it anymore. I just want you to understand that I noticed. And I want you to understand that this I gestured at the room around us happened without you. And it will keep happening without you." He was quiet for a moment. "Then, I'm trying to help you." "I know," I said. And I almost believed he believed that. "But I don't need the kind of help that comes with conditions. I've watched what that looks like." He left before I closed up. He didn't buy anything either. I was locking the front door that night when my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Simone, Derek's girlfriend. I need to talk to you, not about what you think. Please." I almost ignored it. Then I thought about the voicemail I'd saved. About the way my father had touched my fabric displays like he was assessing inventory. About the weight of the past 2 weeks. I texted back, "Come by the store. Tomorrow. 9 a.m. Before we open." She was already outside when I arrived. Simone was quieter than I expected. She had the look of someone who'd been rehearsing what to say for days and was suddenly not sure any of it was right. She sat down with both hands wrapped around a coffee cup and didn't look at me directly for the first 30 seconds. "I've been with Derek for 2 years, she started. "I love him. I want you to know that before I say the rest." I waited. "There's a group chat," she said. "Your dad, your stepmother, Derek, your Aunt Linda. It's called," she paused. "It's called Damage Control." I kept my face very still. "It started the week after your launch. After the photographer's reel went viral." She slid her phone across the table slowly, like she was half hoping I'd stop her. They were scared. I don't think they expected you to actually succeed. And when you did, I looked at the screen. The messages were time-stamped, clearly real, clearly frantic in the way that people are when a story gets away from them. She's going to be insufferable about this. If she gets a feature in the local paper, it'll be impossible to have a real conversation with her. What if we call the landlord? Dave knows him, right? Float that there might be noise complaints. Derek, you said she seemed open when you talked to her. Can you go back in? We need her to think she needs us before this gets bigger. I read them 3 times. Not because I didn't understand them the first time. Because I wanted to feel the full shape of what I was looking at before I decided what to do with it. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Simone looked up. Because they asked me to get close to you. To come in as a customer and report back on the business. She set her phone face down, and I'm not going to do that. What changed your mind? I came in last week, she said quietly. When you didn't know who I was. And I watched you with your customers. The way you talked to that woman who was shopping for her daughter's graduation gift. The way you knew exactly which fabric she should be looking at before she even finished her sentence. She shook her head. You've built something real. And they want to kneecap it because it makes them feel small. I'm not willing to be part of that. I sat with that for a moment. If I ask you to go on record, I said, with a journalist, would you? She nodded once. I already prepared a statement. Sometimes the most unexpected person in the room is the one who decides everything. The article ran on a Friday morning. A journalist I'd connected with through my online community, someone who covered small business and independent retail, had been sitting on our interview for a week waiting for the right moment. The screenshots from Damage Control ran with it. Names redacted, except for the one who'd offered to call the landlord because that one crossed from family drama into something that looked a lot like attempted interference, and my lawyer had said so. The headline was, "She built it alone. Then her family tried to take it apart." By noon, the story had been shared 11,000 times. By 3 in the afternoon, I had 72 new appointment requests. A boutique owner in Nashville sent me a message that just said, "Sister." A woman who ran a sustainable fashion blog with 400,000 followers posted about the article and called Thread and Light the kind of store the industry has been pretending doesn't exist. My phone didn't stop. In the middle of it, a text from Derek. Simone broke up with me. I hope you're happy. I set my phone down and went back to helping a customer choose between 2 shades of terracotta linen, because that's what I was there to do. My stepmother showed up that afternoon. She didn't come inside. She stood on the sidewalk outside the window and looked in for a long moment, and I watched her from behind the register, and then she left. I don't know what she came to say. I don't think she knew either. My father called that evening. I let it ring. He didn't leave a voicemail. That night, after closing, I sat in the armchair by the window, the green boucle one he'd sat in without asking, and I let myself feel the full weight of the week. Not the good parts, not the press, not the 72 appointment requests. Just the part where my family had looked at everything I'd built, and their first instinct had been to figure out how to use it or break it. I let myself feel how much that hurt. And then I let it be done. The thing about grief is it doesn't ask your permission. But you do get to decide how long you sit in it. I stood up, turned off the lights, and locked the door. 3 weeks later, my landlord called to say the unit next door had become available. The previous tenant had relocated. He offered me first right of refusal at a rate that made me sit down. I called my lawyer, then my accountant, then my business partner, a woman I'd met through an online makers community who handled operations while I handled design. We'd been talking about expansion for 8 months. We'd been waiting for the right moment. I signed the papers on a Tuesday morning. Alone, the way I'd done everything that mattered. The expansion would double the floor space. I planned to use half of it as a workshop, public classes, community events, a residency program for designers who were where I'd been 4 years ago. Talented, serious, and without a room of their own. The week the construction started, my father sent a card. Actual card, paper, stamp. Proud of you, Clara. Always have been. I held it for a moment. Set it on my desk. Didn't respond. Not out of bitterness. Not to punish him. But because I'd learned something over the past few months that I couldn't unlearn. Some things close whether you want them to or not. Not every door that shuts is a wound. Some of them are just finished. The night before the workshop space opened, a woman came into the boutique an hour before closing. She was nervous in the way of someone who's practiced being small for a long time. She looked at everything but didn't reach for anything. I asked if she was looking for something specific. She said, "I make things. Textile art. I've been doing it for 15 years in my apartment and I've never shown anyone." She paused. "I saw your story. I thought if you could do it." I came out from behind the counter. "Come here," I said. "I want to show you something." I walked her to the back, where the new workshop space was still half finished, smelling like fresh plaster and possibility. I showed her the light fixtures we'd chosen, the long communal tables we were having made. The wall we'd left raw brick on purpose. "This opens in 2 weeks," I said, "and the first residency spot is yours if you want it." She started crying before I finished the sentence. I handed her a tissue from my pocket because I'd learned to keep them there. "They told me the same thing," I said, while she collected herself. "That it wasn't realistic. That I was being naive. That I should wait until I had more money, more experience, more permission." She looked at me. "Don't wait for the permission," I said. "Build the room yourself. And then make sure there's space for someone else in it." She nodded, wiped her eyes, looked around at the bare walls and the unfinished floor and the good light coming through the new windows. "What do I do first?" she asked. "Show up," I said. "That's the whole thing. Just show up."